We are going to kick it off this week with the lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. Well, this week has been one, a surprise, and two, a flurry of activity. We got um, a couple surprise announcements in video form and also in, PR form. So first up, there was an Apple announcement for some new hardware. So typically, the Apple events for Apple are these well produced, planned out events. Apple usually gives folks a week's notice. The first one is usually in the spring, March, April time. But straight out of the gate in 2023, the second week of January, we got a 17-minute Apple announcement video that released new Apple Silicon chips, a new Mac Mini, and a new MacBook Pro. So we'll start with that announcement first. So Mac Mini, they did a new release, a refresh of the Mac Mini, which comes with the M2 chip and the M2 Pro chip. You can actually order those today. You could order them starting on Tuesday, I believe. And they will be available on the 24th, which is Friday. It starts at around $599. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, whoa, where did this come from? We weren't expecting any of this. So we weren't expecting new chips and we weren't expecting new hardware machines. So that was a bit surprised. Were you surprised at all by any of that?
Well, I think people, and what I mean people, tech journalists, had been assuming that M2 chips were coming to the Mac Mini and the MacBook Pro. I'm pretty sure they didn't think it was this soon, and I'm pretty sure they didn't think it was going to be in this format. I'm pretty sure, like you said, this was a surprise because there was no Apple event for this. It was just they released a video and updated their website, for
With
lack
no
of a better
fanfare.
term.
It was just
Right.
like, Beyonce when she dropped her video, her what is it, self-titled. It was just like, here you go,
Right.
something for the masses. And a lot of people, including me, I was excited about the Mac Mini because I have one of the older Mac Minis, and I think I may pick up one. Of course, they come in three different levels. Like I said, they start at $599, goes up to $799, and they have a $12.99 version where you can get the M2 chip or the M2 Pro chip. Were you surprised by, I guess, any of the, I guess, the hardware specs itself?
No, I am surprised by the price, simply because my middle child, she's a gamer, she's a video editor, she does all those things. She has a YouTube channel, and she's got a 2012 MacBook Air.
Hmm.
And anytime she turns that thing on to play video games or do video editing, I feel kind of bad
That fan is
because
screaming.
that fan is screaming. So I'm pretty sure it's messing with her audio,
Hmm.
so much so to where I kind of showed her a trick in Final Cut Pro on how to soften the background noise. But you really shouldn't have to do that, right?
Yeah.
So I've always been looking for her a for real system, a full computer, right? Well,
Hmm.
just an updated one. And ideally, I was going to get a Mac Mini because she really doesn't use it for anything else but gaming and video editing. So, the reason why I got her laptops, the kids' laptops in the first place, because I thought they was going to take them to school. I thought they was going to move around the house, maybe sitting at the dining room table or
Hmm.
take them to school, especially at the time I bought them, it was during COVID. So I figured, they'll use these at home. And then eventually when they go back to school, they will use them as school computers. Well, the school issued them computers that they can take to and from school. So she really uses that for school.
Hmm.
So her computer that she got, she uses it for gaming and video editing. So it's kind of stationary.
Hmm.
So all the way around the world to say, I was looking for her to get a M1, when the M2s came out, because I figured eventually they come out. That would be a perfect time to get a good deal on an M1 Mac Mini. But I was surprised at the price of the M2, because it's like, well, right now, if I try to find an M1 Mac Mini, I'm gonna spend about $500.
Yeah.
And even if that's on the base level, because I don't want to get her to base level, because she needs more RAM and she needs more hard drive space, because she's a gamer and a video
Right.
editor. So to try to spec up a M1 is going to be about almost $600. Well, this new one that's an
Hmm.
M2 is $599 as well. So the price was a surprise, because now I've got to decide on whether or not I'm going to get my daughter an M1 Mac Mini to save $50,
Yeah.
or just go ahead and spend the $50 and get her something brand spanking new, right?
Especially when it has, looking at the specs, it has an 8-core CPU, four for performance, four for efficiency. Comes with 8 gigabytes of memory, and you can get up to 16 or 24 gigabytes, and it has 256 gigabytes of storage, which you can, scale up to 512, 1 terabyte, and 2 terabyte. So yeah, for $599, yeah, might as well get the latest and greatest,
Right.
because it's um they talked about the chips. I didn't get too detailed in the chip specs, because it's an incremental step from M1s. But if you're going from an Intel processor to a M2, that's a significant leap to
Yep.
me. All
So,
right. Yep. So the next thing that was released, well, announced, was MacBook Pro is coming with the M2 Pro and the new M2 Max chip. This is going to come in both 14 and 16 inch. Again, you could order it now. You could order on Tuesday when they announced it, and it's available on Friday the 24th. Price starting at 19, might as well say 2000 and 2500 for both of those. And this is where I think we'll probably see the biggest uh, jump in the specs, particularly as it relates to the chipset. I have an M1 Pro, and it's pretty snippy. Even in the announcement, when they kind of did the benchmarking between the M1 and the M2 Pros, it was an incremental change for me, for someone who already has an M1 Pro. But if you're going from something else, or if you're going from an Intel chip, you're going to see quite a significant boost.
yeah, I have the same machine. So, as since the prices are about the same, I'm not doing enough to what's the word, to validate
Mhm.
going from an M1 Pro to an M2 Pro. But definitely, if you've been holding out, knowing that there was going to be an M2, again, like I said before, I don't think this was a surprise that the M2s were coming out. I
Mhm.
just think it was a surprise that they were coming out this soon,
So
and we just,
early.
right, so early. But people who have been holding out, again, this is probably the computer to get. I think our computers are a year over, a little over a year
Just
old.
over a year, yeah.
So
October, yeah.
if you just bought like the MacBook Air that just recently came
Mhm.
out, or something like that, there's a good chance that Apple's going to come out with an M3, in about a year and a half. But you are good, because you just recently bought.
Mhm.
But for those of us who have the M2s, I think this is, you could probably hold out. I ain't gonna tell you how to spend your money. If you got it in your pocket and that's burning a hole in your pocket, go ahead and make the jump.
Spend it.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the like the little bar graph that
Mhm.
compares the M2 Max with the M2 Pro with the M1 Max and then the M1 Pro. Between the M1 Pro and the M2 Pro, maybe there's a little bit of a difference, but is it enough for you to have to trade in your M1 Pro to then fork up the extra money, which I did do. I actually just looked at how much it would be for me to trade in my M2 Pro to Apple and then purchase and use that as credit to purchase an M2 Pro
Mhm.
MacBook for my M1 Pro. I think Apple was going to give me like a little under $1,100 for mine because I did bump up the RAM to 16 gigs and I bumped up the hard drive space to a terabyte.
Mhm.
So the comparable M2 Pro MacBook Pro 16 inch, I was going to have to spend $1,500 on top of the
Additional.
on top of the $1,100 that they was going to give me. I was like, yeah, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. Especially for a machine you just bought
Right.
a year just
And it
over a
works
year
and it
ago.
works just fine. I don't
Works
have any
perfectly
problems
fine.
whatsoever.
And I want to say when I was prepping for the show, I want to say there are rumors, you know how rumors can go, that the M3 is they're going to try and get it out before the end of this year. So maybe that's why they went ahead and dropped these so early
Hmm.
because they have the M3s coming out, towards the end of the year. So who knows? But yeah, it's one of those things that the tech wasn't a surprise. The timing, I think, was the biggest surprise. And they weren't finished this week with dropping Jim's HomePod. There's a new HomePod that was dropped yesterday, which was trying to think when the day of the show airs. I think it was yesterday, which would be Wednesday.
Hmm.
So yeah, new HomePod. If you remember, HomePod was retired and replaced with the HomePod Minis. Both Terrance and I have HomePod Minis. We enjoy them, and people thought we had seen the last of the HomePod and thought maybe we'd get some different iteration, but they decided to bring it back for $299. You can order it now, but it won't be available until February 3rd. And again, like I mentioned, it starts, well, it doesn't start, it's only one price, $299. It comes in the black and the white. So yeah, it got a bit of a refresh. I think the biggest thing that has come out of this is the inclusion of a couple of different sensors, a temperature and what is it?
Humidity.
Temperature and humidity sensors are now in the new home pods. So I have to say I'm a little bit surprised that it didn't get I was thinking that they were going to maybe add something more to this. But it just looks like, the home pods that they discontinued and they just kind of rejiggered the guts a little bit.
Made it a little
Um,
bit cheaper.
yeah, and of course, software changes always helps. Looking through the specs, it looks the same. Again, like I said, I think most of it's the interior, it's the guts of the device that have changed. And again, like I said, I'm surprised that it didn't get any sort of design change, especially when it was kind of decommissioned with a bit of fanfare for them to bring it back looking basically the same.
Well, I remember when the first HomePods came out, the bigger ones that are similar to the ones that just announced, people were having problems with them leaving rings around on their coffee tables and their nice wooden cabinets and things of that nature. So I think Apple took that as a learning curve. They were mad expensive. I think there was like
Was it
almost
449 or something like
yeah,
that?
almost $500 for those. People kind of scoffed at the price for that. Um, they really didn't do too much of anything outside of they didn't have a screen to actually interface. So people kind of scoffed at that, but they kind of got used to that with the HomePod Mini that came on after that. So I think it was a learning experience for Apple for the first HomePod. I believe, like I mentioned in my prediction show, I think Apple's going to get more into audio simply because, they are big with Apple Music and they really didn't have any audio products, until the HomePod and the HomePod Mini. So I don't think they're going anywhere, even though they discontinued the HomePod, the original one. I still thought they were going to come out with bring it back out. And like I said in my predictions, when I predicted that Apple's going to do like a sound bar, I think they're going to. I still think they're going to do that, but I think they needed to shore up their speaker offering, and I think this HomePod is the culmination of everything they learned with the original HomePod and then the HomePod Minis, because I think they're going to continue that onto other audio products for home theater, surround sound, things of that nature.
Yeah, and I also think when they did in the video that I'm showing a little bit of it on the screen now, but for those who are watching us live or watching us on YouTube, is one of those things where one of the things they highlight is the spatial audio. So it
Mm-hmm.
does give you the surround sound feel. It also allows you, if you have more than one, you get the spatial audio kind of
The
doubly.
stereo,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I think, that's, kind of the context. And again, since I think the minis were so popular and the minis were only 99 bucks, bringing down the price point, and I'm interested to see what these new sensors have to do. I think once we get the new software releases. I think there were a bunch of release candidates dropped for iPad, iOS, WatchOS, and also for HomeKit.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll see probably what more this can do um, you know, for uh, for the product. So I think that's going to be one of the things that is pretty evident. And also for the HomePod Mini, um, apparently, unbeknownst to anyone, the same temperature and humidity sensors were already built into the HomePod Minis, but they will
Oh
now
wow.
be activated
Oh,
once
okay.
the new software release comes in. So we'll be able to use whatever these two sensors are meant to do. If you have a HomePod Mini, you'll be able to get this as well.
Right. So, for instance, in my case, right, I'm interested in these home pods. I won't buy them yet because I have a house full of Sonos equipment that I first got to get rid of. But once I do, the first thing I'll do is buy the home pods because, again, they have the Siri, they have the audio interface using via Siri. One of the things I do all the time is, ask my phone or ask my smart thermostat what's the temperature in here, right? And then either my phone or the thermostats will say so, but I have to be near my phone or near the thermostat in order to do that. Well, with this, since my thermostat integrates with HomeKit, and since HomePod can be used as a HomeKit hub,
Mhm.
anywhere I put the HomePods, I can say, hey, homegirl, what is the temperature in here or what is the humidity? I never really care about humidity. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm a guy, so I don't care about humidity. Maybe the ladies with the hair, I get it. But I'm always asking, what's the temperature in the bedroom? What's the temperature in wherever we at? So this is just another interface in order to me to that'll enable me to interact with my home,
Yeah.
without it being my phone or with being another device that I know is connected. Since this is the hub, I can ask it, using audio cues, and it'll work.
Yeah, and it all kind of plays into, of course, Apple is very strategic when they release things, how things roll out. As I mentioned, the release candidates for iOS 16.3, iPadOS 16.3, TV OS 16.3, and watchOS 9.3. They are expected to hit January 24th, which is when all of the new hardware that was announced this week, with the exception of the HomePod, will be available with the HomePod the following week. So it's one of those things where it's kind of, how the A team used to say, I love it when a plan comes together. All of these things are kind of coming in and converging. So at the same time and so early in the year, which leads me into the next thing I wanted to mention. Um, the way that these announcements were handled and the cadence that Apple is typically on, all of that has kind of been blown out of the water. Do you think this could mean something different from the way that Apple events are handled? Do you think maybe this was just a one-off to kind of get some things out of the way? Do you think, it's not that big of a deal?
Um, this it's going to change. It's going to set the standard for how Apple does events for products we don't care about. And what I mean by that is nothing's going to change when it comes to WWDC. Nothing's going to change when it comes to the Apple event in September when they announce the new iPhones. What they'll probably do is they'll make sure to have a more, what's the word, a fuller event in September, which I think what Apple will do is make sure that they announce iPads with iPhones
Mm.
during the September event. And then
So
they'll do the,
do you think we won't have a spring event?
no, no. What I think they'll do is we'll have WWDC in June. We'll
Mm.
have the iPhone and mobile event, which will be iPhones, Apple Watch, iPad in September, October. And then everything else will be like this.
Yeah.
So with the maybe, nope, everything will be like this. MacBooks, Macs, which is
Mm.
all the other stuff, right? And maybe, if they have the AR, VR glasses,
Headsets.
they'll have an event for that. But everything else, none of the stuff we care about, the Apple TVs will be video / press release. Macs will be video / press releases. What else? That's all I can think of right
Oh,
now.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's funny because I was on DTNS on Tuesday, and of course none of us had any idea that this was coming. So it was kind of apropos that I was on, but that's kind of, what I thought about. The things that, you know, I don't say we don't care about, but things that aren't as glamorous, because, not that the mini or the HomePod or any of those things are thrown away or throwaway products. Typically, I want to say the end of last year, they were doing, press releases. So it's one of those things where it's like, let's just throw out this press release, let's release the software and go on about our day. I think during the pandemic, they got really good at producing these events. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. They can do a production and put it out there to people so people feel like they're getting something, and at the same time not have to go through all the hubbub of actually having an in-person event.
alive, right?
Yeah, they can get the point across. They can do all the razzle dazzle, all the graphics, all the effects, and all the people coming out doing their speeches and their outfits and those types of things.
And we'll
They can,
accept it.
yeah, you'll get your bang for your buck, and you're used to it now because these announcements have been happening this way for the last 3 years. And I think it'll make the Apple actually in-person events even better because you don't have to, I won't say
Cram all
waste
the stuff.
time, right?
Yeah.
You won't have to spend time on certain things when people really they want to see iPhone. They want to see an AR, VR headset. They want to see new iPads, some of these other smaller type things. It really just takes up space in the event when you can have an event that's not as jam packed, and it's like you can't really wrap your mind around all of it because they're just throwing this at you, that at you. I mean, it's just like, let me bob and weave because it's just so much information. It's like information overload. If they can take some of these smaller releases, these smaller products, and do a razzy snazzy video, or people like, oh yeah, that's cool, we got a video, we got an event like
Feeling,
yeah,
experience.
feeling, yeah, without having to go through the hubbub and the hassle of actually putting on an event.
Got you. That makes sense.
So yeah, um a pretty good week for Apple. They're shocking the world a little bit, when I
Yeah,
think people weren't really expecting that, especially this early, the second week in January.
right.
They're out the gate. So
Yep. Let me know if you need some Sonos equipment. Hit me up.
no Facebook Marketplace.
No, I can't stand it. I tried to sell some stuff over the holidays. It's just the worst. The experience selling on Facebook Marketplace, and I'll digress, but I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Yeah, so I wasn't I'm well, not a huge proponent of the smart home. Like I have the HomePod minis kind of like on each area of my house because I just kind of like to listen to music while I'm doing other stuff. So I don't have like the smart thermostat or
The
the
lights or
doors and
anything.
lights and anything like that. But it sounds like to me, kind of like one of my predictions is already starting to kind of take shape and take form as it relates to what we can expect from Apple with some new smart home innovation. So,
Right. And they made it easier to add to the HomePods the interface for passing music from your phone to the HomePods is easier. And the interface to actually control the music on your phone that's playing through your HomePods, they've fixed that or improved on that interface as well.
which definitely needed some improvement because sometimes handing off from my phone to the HomePod, I mean to the mini and back, I was like, oh man, let me close it, reopen it. So I'm looking forward to that upgrade as well.